All right. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Juan. I head up the product strategy team here at Rapyd. I've been with the company just about 4 years, and I've been about 15 years in fintech. So really excited here to be here with you today and talk to you. Quick disclaimer, I'm usually in the meeting room at the whiteboard, not on stage, so bear with me if I have any personal hiccups here. So to get started, I'm going to talk about the payments network. Before I dive in great detail, what I want for you guys to do today, whether you're an existing customer, an existing partner, if you're talking to us, I want you to walk away with an idea. I want you to walk away with either a new payment method that might be interesting to you, a new market that you want to go into. So hang with me. Let's go through the presentation. Some of it you may have seen in the past, but I promise you that you can walk away here with a new powerful idea, and that should be the goal for this session, okay? So let me get started. We thought it'd be fun to talk about Rapyd and what it takes to deliver this network that we've built. And so it's very much like putting on a production, going on tour, as we like to say, and it takes a lot of logistics behind the scenes to make an event happen. Even this event today, of course, there's a lot of coordination. You know, you've got companies like Stage Truck, like OTD, that are putting together a lot of attention to detail and going through the journey that each of us are going to have at an event like this and making sure that everything's thought out and well done. So we're going to go on tour around the Rapyd Global Network. But before we dive into that, just want to reframe, okay, so what is FinTech as a service? It starts with a single platform that is API enabled. It is also the world's largest payments network. And so when you combine the two of these, what you get is our great local experience platform, which allows you to build new FinTech applications for whatever type of use cases you may have. So I just wanted to reframe there. Next, so here, we start to preview by the numbers, and I'll switch side here. What you have is a powerful network where you have 2,000 banks connected. You've got 190 countries that you can send money to or receive from. You've got 40 different markets where you can set up virtual accounts, as you saw earlier with Sorel. It's as easy as a few clicks, and you have a virtual account in 40 different markets. We accept 900 different payment methods. And so as you see by the numbers, we are in just about every corner of the world. And not only do we do bank accounts, we do cash, we do cards, we do e-wallets in local markets. And so it's a very powerful network. Okay? Now, to accomplish this, there are a few key ingredients. First, you need to work with local licensing schemes. And so that is a key component to what we do. We work with the banks, we work with the licensed payment providers. In many markets, we ourselves are also licensed and regulated, of course. And we bring together as well money transmitters, FX specialists. And so that's the local aspect to what we do. Next, we have what we package as the Global Payments Network. So that's the program management, the settlement network. It's making sure that the connections to the gateways are running up and smoothly. E-money, remittance, the network rules. And so, for example, when we talk about transaction monitoring and you dig into that, you realize that money transfer rules in the US are very different from Singapore or from Mexico. And so that fact that that's built in is a very powerful tool, and it means it's one less thing for you to have to manage. And of course, the reason that companies come to us to grow with us is because of our scalable footprint. So that means physical and digital distribution. It means working with schemes like SWIFT for international wires. It means that we are, for example, in the Americas, we use a hub infrastructure. We work very deeply in the US, Mexico, and Brazil, and it gives us a great footprint to scale the rest of the business and to scale for you. And of course, we also manage through local entities, through non-resident accounts. And all of this infrastructure, again, means that it's one less thing for you to do, so that it ultimately is as simple as a click on a website to generate the FinTech you need. All right, so now going a little bit deeper on the e-license, or the money licensing infrastructure. So as I mentioned, we've got hubs all over. We've got a hub in Mountain View, California, and we're regulated by FinCEN there. We are based in Mexico as well, and we have an entity operating there that gives us certain FinTech capabilities. We have a Brazilian entity that's enabled for collections, for issuing, for disperse and wallets as well. And that's for the Americas. Moving over, we've got the European hub. So we are licensed and regulated in the UK. And it allows us to not just process payments, but also store funds. And so when we talk about the wallet and storing funds, it's a very key component there. And then if we move over to APAC, we've got a license or various licenses in Singapore, which again allows us to not just process payments, but also store value, which is a key part to the wallet and to powering several use cases. We have presences in Japan, in India, and as you guys know, we're Israeli-based, so we have a development and engineering center in Tel Aviv and also one in Dubai now. So altogether, this allows us to span around the globe and to enable our hubs for fintech. All right. So here now, the power of the network, and this is something that I talk to customers all the time about. When you are building fintech and you go into a local market, it's not just cards, and it's not just cash, it's not just bank, it's not just wallets like a M-Pesa or a Paytm wallet in India. There are various methods, and depending on the use case, you need them all. And so if we look at cash specifically, it's something that we can collect and disperse throughout the globe. If you look at bank, earlier you saw the presentation again from Sorel of virtual accounts, but we also do direct transfers, we do real-time payments, we do direct debit in various markets, and we also have an experience that's a redirect, that's a particular flavor in certain markets. Going through issuing, we do both virtual and physical cards, and this is a great way to spend funds in the wallet as a working capital mechanism, or at the same time as a way to disperse payroll and so on. So many use cases you can build on top of that. Of course, we have cards, and we use this not just for collect, but also disperse. So you can collect payment from a card, and that's what most merchants are accustomed to. But if you're involved in a marketplace and you need to push funds to a worker, let's say in the US, a very popular method is to push the funds to a card, a debit card, and it's a real-time payment, and it's as easy as entering your card information to get set up. So we support cards, and then last but not least, we support e-wallets. So in APAC, for example, GrabPay is a very popular wallet. It's something that we offer on the platform, and not only can we disperse to them, we can also collect from them, and increasingly we're expanding our recurring billing type of infrastructure for even e-wallets. So at a high level, again, to summarize, we've got cash, bank, issuing, card, and e-wallet. And the power of the network is that we've abstracted all of this. For those of you who have worked with your developers to ever connect to a new scheme, you know that they have to do all the field mapping and whatnot to connect to a scheme. But with Rapyd, this is all taken care of. It's abstracted so that your teams can focus on just turning on markets and payment methods as opposed to the nitty-gritty. Okay. All right, so let's go on tour. We're going to start with the Americas. And here, just to start, we'll say that the most popular methods are debit cards and savings accounts around the region. And so we've got a breakdown of a few key markets in LATAM. If you look across, and there's a bit of an eye chart, but if you look by country here, Brazil has a high penetration of various payment methods. And so it's a market where there's a big affinity or appreciation for trying different things until they find the method that works best for them. So you see in Brazil that there's a high adoption of debit cards, bank accounts, but also things like crypto. In Argentina, you'll see, for example, that crypto is the most adoption there of any other market, followed by Chile and Brazil and so on. So you see in this survey that we ran, you see that how these different markets behave as it relates to methods. And it also, as Rapyd, gives us the ability to see, okay, if this is where users are, we optimize our network based on a lot of this data. And again, this is something that we're doing so that at the end of the day, you don't have to. Monitoring the trends, monitoring the changes in scheme rules, monitoring the different versioning of different schemes and keeping up with that. That's something that we're constantly monitoring, not just from a user preference point of view, but also from a regulatory point of view, and making sure that we always keep and optimize the most popular methods. So moving on, here's another view So if you look at the top 2 online preferred payments by country, you'll see that in Argentina, Mercado Pago, which is more like a wallet-based payment, is highly popular, followed by debit card. If you look at Brazil, bank transfer is the star, and debit card follows. What's interesting, though, about Brazil is that in 2 years, they launched a scheme called Pix, and it's been hugely successful. It has basically taken an antiquated bank transfer scheme that's called TED, which is a lot like the US ACH infrastructure, and they converted over to this real-time payment system. Now, again, Rapyd has already integrated Pix, so if you're looking to expand to a market like Brazil, you don't need to keep up with the latest trends. It's something that the Rapyd platform does natively. And so even though bank transfer is evolving in Brazil, this isn't something you need to worry about. We'll expose the new methods, and you can be up and running and powering new use cases. In Chile, you see that the preferences flip a little bit. So they're more common to using debit cards than bank transfers. When you go to Colombia, it switches again, bank transfer and not debit cards. And then in Mexico, you see debit card and PayPal. PayPal is a big one there. And then in Peru, Yap and debit card. When I look at a slide like this, and I'm thinking to myself as a venture-backed company, like those of you who are here for our ventures section, keeping up with all of this, figuring out the right methods, it's a lot of work. And it's even harder when you have to prioritize. Anybody that has R&D resources knows that you have to prioritize at the end of the day. And what do you start with? Well, if you start with bank transfer, you'll do great in Brazil, you'll do great in Colombia, but you might be at a disadvantage in other markets. And so if you then instead decide, let's start with debit card, okay, great. You'll be fine in Chile, you'll be fine in Mexico, but you're not optimized. And so the power here is that with the Rapyd network, doesn't matter where you're going to start, the method is there, and you can optimize as you go. All right, so we also looked at the preferred ways to receive payments. And this is for either payroll or to self or for contractor type payments. And so as we gauge this preference here, we saw that in some markets, check is still a thing. So there are contractors that will take check. We saw that there are some markets where payment to card is accepted. But typically, it ends up being either a direct bank transfer or even cash. And so these are big methods as you go around and how people want to get paid. For those of you who are payroll companies or working with migrant workers, you know fully well that in order for let's say the payer to complete the payment, well, you need to somehow collect the preference of the contractor. Sometimes as a company, you might say, well, I'm just going to send wires, so give me your wire information. Wire information is actually pretty difficult to get in the standard bank account. You got to go to the FAQ section, go here, go there. It's very painful. But if instead you can say, well, you can direct bank transfer through the local scheme, it becomes much easier for you to pay out to workers. And all of this is, again, abstracted in the Rapyd platform so that you're just saying to your recipient, here, fill out your details, we'll tokenize your information, and you can receive payment the way you need to. All right, so to recap here, in the Americas, we are registered with US FinCEN. We work also under a US bank sponsorship model, so we have different partner banks in the US. In Brazil, we work through partnership, and in Mexico, we have an entity. And this allows us to collect, disperse, issue cards. On issuing cards, specifically, we're in Mexico and Brazil, so I didn't mention that earlier, but it's really useful. And then for cash networks, we actually have a class-leading cash network. So whether it's the US, Mexico, all throughout the Americas. And in the use case earlier that Arik mentioned, where Ambev is one of our clients. And we started in Mexico with this digitalization of cash. Well, the plan is to go to other markets as well and to take away that cash problem that they have and make it into something more modern. And so we have a world-class leading cash network there in the Americas. And then, of course, we support bank transfers to various payout types there. Okay. And to recap, this is what the snapshot of the Americas is for us. So in the Caribbean, we're specifically in the Dominican Republic. In North America, we're in the USA, Canada, and Mexico. We are also present in Central America, specifically in Costa Rica, El Salvador, Panama, Guatemala, and then in South America, we cover most of the continent there. Okay. Zooming in a little bit, just to give a local flavor. Specifically in Mexico, so we process for Visa and MasterCard. For bank transfers, we support a couple of different experiences. So you can either redirect, where we'll take you to your bank, you log in, you authorize the payment, or you can receive an instruction to push money to a bank account. And we work with the top banks there. And the predominant scheme is SPAY, which is their electronic bank transfer scheme. We also support bill pay, which is a form of pushing money or fulfilling an invoice. And so we work with the top billers there. And then for cash, we're, again, top network. We work with the banks. We work with a lot of the convenience stores like 7-Eleven, and also with a lot of the, what they call super pharmacies or drugstores in some markets or supermarkets. So that's a Mexico snapshot. In Brazil, similar type of approach here where we expose not just one method, but various. So we've got bank transfers, again, with a direct or redirect experience. We have cards, and not just MasterCard and Visa, but rather Amex, Elo, and HiperCard, which are popular local card methods there in Brazil. And then as well as cash. So if you've ever done business in Brazil, there's a voucher cash type payment called boleto bancario. And this is something that we support there. It's highly popular. And we work through the biggest banks to offer that. Okay. Now let's go back on tour. Let's go to Europe this time. And similar view here. If you look at the different markets, here we did a survey on Denmark, on France, on the UK. And so if you look at the trends here, it's pretty interesting. Overall, debit cards and bank accounts are the preferred methods, as you'd expect. And so, but you still see that certain other methods are popular as well. Prepaid cards, credit cards, of course, savings account. And here you see that there's kind of an even penetration or usage across these methods. And so unlike other markets, it's a little more homogeneous, I'd say, where here you might say, well, I'm going to start with banking or bank transfers, and it's a very popular method across the board. And then you might go to cards, and you get to roll out as you go. So here on the next slide, so looking again at the preferred methods online, here you start to see a bit of a difference. And so you have bank redirects, which are popular. But you also have credit cards and debit cards, of course. And here you start to see online preferences do vary quite a bit. So in Sweden, Klarna and Swish are the top ones. Then you go over to the UK, and debit cards and PayPal are dominant. You go over to Iceland, credit cards and debit cards again. But you move around, and you see that the preferences are indeed a bit different. And so, again, if you're going to any of these markets, rather than investigating and choosing one partner to help you, let's say, get credit cards in Iceland, well, with Rapyd and our global network, you're able to say, okay, well, we're going to go to Iceland, but we're going to support all the methods, and you'll optimize your checkout or your payment experience for that. But then on top of that, you have the ability to go across the region into other markets and be optimized from the start. Okay, so here also for receiving regular payments, payroll is obviously a very near and dear thing for the people that work on either gig economy platforms or to new platforms that are emerging. And so when you look across the board, predominantly you see bank transfers as a preferred method by and far. Whereas in the Americas, it wasn't quite so stark a penetration of bank transfers and a preference. In Europe, if you're making payouts, it's you're well covered with bank transfers. But then you look at wires. Wires are preferred as a preference as well. But here, if you're looking to optimize, we would look to bank transfer and wires and to cover both. And it's something that you can do with the Rapyd network. All right. So to sum up here, in the EU and in the UK in particular, we're regulated by the FCA. And our capabilities include collect, disperse, issuing as well. We do support SEPA in the form of direct credit or direct debit schemes. And we also support pan-European acquiring. So earlier you heard about the Valitor acquisition. We had acquiring before, but now our capabilities are enriched by that acquisition, and we're able to do more of what our customers need. Okay. All right, and now to take a quick look at what Europe is for us. So we cover all the countries here, from Austria to the UK, a lot of Western Europe, but at the same time, moving towards Eastern Europe, there is coverage. And this is a network that we're constantly expanding. And then in the UK, to zoom in on some of the markets, so for bank, we cover virtual IBANs. You saw that earlier. We cover faster payments, SWIFT, BACS, and CHAPS, so all of the main bank clearing systems. We support card, of course, in the form of MasterCard, Visa, and Maestro. And then for cash, we work with PaySafe Card to support cash payments through a voucher system. And this gives us 10,000 locations in the UK, which is quite powerful. In terms of the EU, we support instant payments. We support direct transfer, direct debit. And we're doing that through SEPA, but we also work with a partner called Trustly that enables some of the redirect experiences. We work with cards, as mentioned earlier, and then PaySafe Card again. And all right, so on we go to Asia. So here, when we look at the preferred methods by country, you start to see differences again. So in India, Paytm is highly popular, but so is Google Pay. But what you don't see is bank transfer necessarily. In Indonesia, you have a wallet, the OVO wallet. You also have Click BCA, that's very popular there. You go to Japan, and now you see something very drastic. So here, credit card is quite popular, and cash is second to that. And then as you go through Malaysia, you see a bank transfer mechanism that's popular, and then credit card. In Singapore, credit card, then bank. And again, it's the same story. You see the same trend over and over, where as you move country by country by country, things switch around. And if you had to build this yourself, if you had to work with a checkout provider in country or a payment processor, you may start in one place, but you'll quickly realize to cover your market as a whole, you'll need to add more and more payment methods. Instead, you get that out of the box with Rapyd. And then here for receiving payments, so the picture here is that in India, it's very interesting. You see that bank transfers do pop up as a preferred method, followed by cash. And in terms of Indonesia, you see that the direct bank transfers. So across the board, and this is something you see with payouts in general across all the markets, bank payouts are the preferred mechanism, but you see a prevalence of cash as well. So I'll keep going. Snapshot here is, so as mentioned earlier, Singapore is our hub country in APAC, and we're licensed there by the Monetary Authority. And in terms of capabilities, we also, of course, offer collect, disperse, and issuing capabilities. And so for collect, we cover all the methods from bank to cash to cards and wallets. For disperse, the bank is the main method, but we also support payout to local wallets and to cash in some markets as well. Okay. Same here, to give you a view of what the countries in APAC, the APAC region constitute for Rapyd. We've got Australia, we cover China, Hong Kong, India, and also through a lot of Southeast Asia, so of course Singapore, and then Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, but we're also in the Philippines and some other markets. So these are key markets here, and we're also expanding here as we optimize the network. Cool. For the Singapore hub, just to revisit this, so the major institution here is the MPI license, and so that's what we have there. It allows us to do cross-border transactions, revision requests, and so we're able to do domestic transfers, inward transfers, and cover different types of payments in Singapore. We're an issuer here, so we work with MasterCard and Visa to issue cards, and then we also partner with banks in countries, so DBS, OCBC, Citibank, JP, and we're set up to support sub-accounts there for the wallet that we power. And so as a hub, this has allowed us to develop fintech for the whole region. And as mentioned earlier, we also have Hong Kong, where we support the new Rapyd Business Account product. And so between Singapore and now HK, we have a pretty good launch pad, if you will, for developing fintech. Okay. Jumping into Singapore, here you'll see that as we look at the different varieties or categories of payment methods, we support bank transfers, e-wallets, cards, cash, and kiosk. Specifically in Singapore, you saw some of the use cases around GoTrade. And so for them, bank transfers is a very key element for the investor target audience that they have. And so the fact that we support real-time payments in a very familiar and friendly way to fund up a wallet is a big win for them. So bank transfers there. For other use cases, we support e-wallets. This is big with a lot of our e-com type merchants. In particular, we have a merchant called Seagamer that I'll talk a little bit more that uses all of these methods here. And then cards, of course, but we also, to call out a distinction, we support a local scheme called Nets, and that's been very popular there. And then, of course, cash through a network called SoCash. Kiosks as well to do payments at an unattended type of terminal. In Indonesia, we cover the categories of bank transfers, e-wallet, cards, and cash as well. And so you'll see that a lot of the top methods here are represented. When companies come to us, they also now request virtual accounts because in Indonesia in particular, we've launched virtual accounts. And so with that complement of bank transfers, we're now supporting all the top banks. We're supporting virtual accounts, which allows our customers to be able to remit funds to the platforms and to then fulfill the use case. E-wallets are big here. One that I haven't mentioned before is Doku, a relatively big and popular wallet there in Indonesia. Cards, the top players, and then for cash, we have a couple of partnerships there. Thailand, similar story. So here, we cover all the categories. Bank transfers are a big component, but so is e-wallet. And so when you talk about customers like Google, so earlier we talked about the Play Store, they're able to basically drop in all of these payment methods and support all of these mechanisms to complete a Play transaction in their marketplace. And so it's something that lets them optimize their experience and do so in a way that's familiar to users. So in Thailand, that's one example there. For Vietnam, also very, very powerful network. So we've got bank transfers, e-wallet, and cash. Cards are not, they're present, but not as well supported, let's say. It's not as mainstream. And so instead we have bank transfers through all the top banks. We work with the top e-wallets, and cash is still very big in Vietnam. Okay, so just to wrap up here, I want to say that if you saw anything here from a market or geographical perspective that is somewhere where you want to go, know that with Rapyd you can do so. Also know that when you go to market, you have not just cards or bank transfers or anything like that, you have the full gamut of payment methods. And so you're able to then promote your experience. You're able to do it in a local, familiar way for your customers, be it businesses or consumers. And you're also able to ensure that you have a fully compliant backbone to your business. And so that's to sum up. Hopefully, if you have any questions about the network, find me or anybody from the Rapyd team after the session. I'll be happy to help. And yeah, just want to say thank you.